Hey, David, let's bring you into that, because you said what was key was the outlook. And so that number kind of blowing away what everybody was expecting.
Yeah, certainly we're seeing a situation here with regards to Intel, in contrast to many, many other companies across other sectors, is we have not only EPS outperformance, but we're also seeing revenue outperformance, not only in the current quarter being reported, but also with respect to the guidance. And so from that standpoint, Intel being the factor that they are in terms of technology, has to speak well in terms of what OEM vendors are going to be doing, whether it's in PCs, laptops, perhaps to some extent handsets, in terms of getting themselves stocked up for a year-end shopping season, and then also building themselves up around product introductions such as that we were talking about with regard to Windows 7.
And we mentioned the fourth quarter outlook, which you said is very key in terms of that sales number blowing away, but even they beat big time for the third quarter as well.
Certainly, and we're in a situation here where we're clearly, there's a lot of leverage to the upside in terms of the company's not only revenue performance because of the factors we discussed, but also in terms of leverage coming from the standpoint of profit margins. And obviously, at the end of the day, it's going to be profit margin performance as well as revenue acceleration, which is going to be serving to drive this stock. And the stock, from its own standpoint, pretty much has been on hold since about the beginning of September at about $20.50 or so. And obviously, we'd expect to see a breakout move coming from Intel based on these numbers. Clearly, we need to see what's going to be said in the conference call, but the tech earnings season with regards to Intel just opened with a bang.
Yeah, and David, that conference call coming out at 4:30, we're also going to be watching that too. But I want to point out, Intel is expanding outside of the PC market. Where do you think that they should focus to get the biggest bang for their buck in the coming quarters?
Well, we've seen Intel indicating not so much for the coming quarters, but really more looking forward, say, over the next 2, 3, 4 years. They want to be more significant in terms of what's going to be going on in the handset market. And in that regard, some of the discussions they've had earlier this year with regards to Nokia as a partner has been significant in terms of expanding the end market for their Atom chip. At the same time, we see Atom doing very, very well with respect to consumer-oriented, low-power PCs. Now, granted, there is a knock here from analysts because they're saying that the Atom's going out at a lower average selling price than the other parts of Intel's line. But at the end of the day, Intel, if they're going to be maintaining their dominance in terms of the various markets, clearly has to be a factor, whether it's at the low end, mid-range, or high end of the market.
Nonetheless, the PC market, obviously, the lion's share of their revenue. How key is the Windows 7 release for Intel, and will they have to do some discounting? Is Microsoft going to cajole them a little bit to lower their average selling price?
I would think that if there's any discounting that probably has to go on, given sort of consumer experience, it may very well have to be discounting on the part of Microsoft. From the standpoint that Intel is as well positioned as they are as a vendor on the range of PC platforms. I mean, clearly, Intel here is, from the major companies involved, in terms of an upgrade cycle, going to be capturing a fairly substantial windfall, if you will, which is deserved given what they've done.
Now, you guys own this stock, correct?
Yes, we do.
Would you be buying on this news?
Certainly. We're constructive on Intel. We think that there certainly is room for the revenues here to grow. We think it's interesting that 2010 revenue estimates going into this year were actually below where they were in 2008, even though you had the prospect of something like Windows 7 coming into the market. And we would say that as a result, analysts really aren't factoring in any success on the part of Microsoft in terms of an upgrade cycle, which leaves you a lot of upside and, again, a lot of room for the stock to move. And we think that even on the numbers that were out there before, the stock should be 25.
All right, David Garrity clicking and dragging his money to where his mouth is. Thanks very much, David.